So if you're watching this on Patreon, thank you for being a Patreon subscriber. If you're watching this and you're not on Patreon and you want to see more of these video recordings from a different angle, from this angle here where I'm pointing directly down with a better quality camera and that, fucking join the Patreon for £1 a month, and you can see me record these shows. Today's show is going to be about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was recommended to me by my missus. She said, you know, try this one because I've been trying lots of cartoons to try and find the hidden messages in cartoons. Let's try a live action film. And I think I found some. I do think I found some brainwashing things in there. There's a lot early on, but we'll get into it. So thank you for being a Patreon subscriber if you are a Patreon subscriber. And if you do watch these on Patreon, leave a little comment underneath and let me know that you watch them on Patreon. There's new stuff on the Redbubble as well, guys. There's loads of new stuff on the Redbubble. New stuff on the website as well. There'll be new stuff on the website, more new stuff on the website by the end of the week, as there is every week. Fucking new podcast as well, that's worth telling you. In the link tree now, there's a new podcast series which we've been recording every week for about the past 35 weeks or so. It's called Truth Seeking, spelt how I would say it, so TROOFSEEKING. And it's everywhere at the minute apart from Apple Podcasts. I'm having a bit of a mare getting it on Apple Podcasts, but it will be there soon. Speaking of Apple Podcasts as well, if you're watching this, while you're waiting for me to get started, Google Apple Podcast, World Around You's podcast, and then leave us a 5-star review and write a little review on there. Doesn't have to make sense. You can make it funny, leave a little joke, you know, and then I'll pick one of yous. For every 50 reviews, I'm going to pick one review and I'll send you something for free. Could be a mouse heart, could be some testicles. Just a nice way for me to give something back to you and for you to help me get up the charts and hopefully get people listening to the podcast. Because we're on the World Around You's podcast, we get about 1,200 listens a month. And it'd be nice to build on that, because then I can use that to then reach more people with Truth Seeking. When there's more people aware of that, I can release an episode of Truth Seeking on there and then send people to Truth Seeking, and not have to spend the first 6-7 months of Truth Seeking being available, just trying to search for the first 1,000 listens. So it would be nice. And you might enjoy it as well if you like what I do. You know, you might enjoy Truth Seeking. But we're going to get started. The computer's ready now. It's come to life. I'm just trying to get my notes up, saying that. So that would be nice if you can do that. All right, Dan Woodward. I don't know if you caught that, mate. You might have missed that on the TikTok stream. There's a giveaway going on at the minute, Dan. So that if you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, when it hits 50 reviews, I'll pick one. When it hits 100, I'll pick another one. And if it gets to 200 in a day, I'll just pick 4 people and I'll send 4 people something for free. Something from me taxidermy, something off my website, or something that's not on my website, maybe something that's from me mystery box gear, you know. I'm on Android. You can still leave a review though, Dan. I'm pretty sure you can go on there through Google and leave a review. There's no other systems to leave a review yet for any other thing, but Apple Podcast seems to be, if you leave reviews on there, it seems that other places use that as a basis for them promoting your show for you. But you know, you don't have to do it. It's just something there for the people that can do that. Right, we'll get into it. As I say, it's about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So if you wanna learn how they're brainwashing your children using Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, stick around. You know. You alright, guys? I'm the World Around You, and this is Pause for Thought on Threshold FM. And this week, I thought we could have a little bit of movie madness. I thought it might be good to try and see what sort of things Tim Burton was trying to manipulate many of your children into believing, or, you know, readying them for with some form of predictive programming in the remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, unlike the Pokemon episode that we had last month, I haven't actually seen this film before. I've seen the Family Guy version of it where they go to Pawtucket Brewery and that, but I don't think I've definitely never watched the remake, and I'm pretty sure I've never watched the original. I have a little bit of I thought I had an idea of what was going to go on, which you're going to see as I go through my notes, but that's annoying. Well, we'll have to start again because the camera's come to life and started fucking travelling around the room. Don't know what caused that. Let's have a little bit more water or something to fucking wet me throat. We'll start again because I took a fucking massive breath halfway through and it seemed weird. Excuse me. There's one for the Patreon. So you don't get that on the show, do you? No. Alright, guys. I'm the world around you, and this is Pause for Thought on Threshold FM. And this week, I thought that we could have a little bit more movie madness, you know, looking into films and trying to see what sort of things the directors and the writers and the actors are trying to trick your kids into believing, if you like. You know, like, for example, with this film, you know, was Tim Burton trying to manipulate your kids into believing something, or was he simply just readying them for a little bit of the future with some predictive programming? And we're going to look at the remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, unlike with the Pokemon episode that we had a two-parter for last month, I've never seen this, and I didn't go into this with any ideas initially, and you might notice that as I go through my notes. Now, I've seen the Family Guy version, where they go around Pawtucket Brewery in like Series 3 or Series 4, I think it was. But I've never watched this. I've definitely never watched the remake, and I don't think I've ever seen the original. And I don't really have much of an idea of what was going on in it. I knew that they're going to get a tour of the factory, but I didn't have a clue what to expect story-wise in that. Now, I'll be dead honest with you. I can't fucking stand musicals, mate, either. Like, they bore the shit out of me. Now, I like parody songs, innit? Like, I like a bit of Weird Al and that, but I can't stand musicals. And I can never, because I can never work out, right, in a musical, is the song a part of it? Now, obviously, it's a part of the film, but is the song a part of the narrative, or is the song just in the singer's head? Or is that how one of them's seeing the world? Like, he's got something wrong with him, he's been kicked in the head by an horse or something, and he thinks everyone's singing. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I remember watching it, I watched a bit of Grease, and I saw this woman fucking singing on a porch, and she has a little sing to herself in the same way that you'd nip out for the cig before bed kind of thing. And then she's on her own, mate. She's on her own singing on the porch. And then about 10 minutes later in the film, another character references that song to her. And I think she finishes a bit of that song in front of them. And to me, it just threw me out of the story, because if it was, I mean, if it wasn't for the shit acting in the film and the terrible story up until that point, it would have completely ruined the film for me. But I just don't get it. I don't understand the singing. I don't understand why a film needs singing. It just seems like a way to fucking further the plot in a film, like a way that where the writer or the director's gone, I don't really know how to portray this, but if we have a song and just shoehorn that song in, you know, and you know, maybe, you know, it's a way for the people who make the film to make a little bit more money as well, because then they can release a song when the film releases, and if it doesn't do great at the box office, maybe the song will recuperate a little bit of money in single sales. I'm not sure. But we'll see. We'll see. This whole episode might just evolve into me just being very confused by this one, because again, it's live action, and I normally watch cartoons. But I'm hoping there's going to be some messages in there in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because there seems to be messages in pretty much anything I watch. I seem to watch things like Emmerdale with my mum and dad when I go to see them, and I think there's hidden messages in there for kids. So, you know, anyway, let's have a song to get us started. This is we'll go for the classic. This is Ice Cream by Raekwon, Method Man, Ghostface, and Capadonna, which is a tune, if anyone's wondering. A little bit of a breather. Fucking hell, I need more. Let me have a swig of coffee. I've not been up long. You're right, Big Chaz. I won't be answering the TikTok people all that often because of fucking I'm doing this, but and I'll have a look at who's on YouTube as well as I'm doing it, and I'll say hello and that. But I'm gonna crack on. Right, so immediately at the start of the film, we're shown this massive tall tower, and then we're thrown down through what seems to be like a vortex. It looks like a vortex of some sort, where it's got a grate over the top of it as well, which makes me think that this grate's there to show that this vortex is possible to get to, and it's got some form of maybe permeable or semi-permeable barrier, like a metal grate would be, between the outside world and whatever this vortex leads to. Now, after a couple seconds, it turns out that this vortex is chocolate, which obviously, as I've watched the film now, it makes sense. And maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but we were then being shown a production line and some form of advanced technology. And I find it hard to believe that your regular confectionery manufacturer would waste money on a press that looks fancy. And there are two balls of light on top of the press, which seems unnecessary, which is what makes it look fancy, because it's got like a spiral mechanism, like a screw, like an Archimedean screw, if you like, which pushes down, and then these balls stay still, which doesn't make anything, doesn't add anything other than maybe aesthetics, but also maybe to try and make your kid realize that this is what technology is going to look like, so everything's going to start looking like it's from inside the TARDIS from Doctor Who. Then straight after that, right, we're being shown that a load of chocolate bars ascending, right, which they're going upwards. Obviously, that's what ascending means. And then they're carried off by what looks like a weather balloon. Now, this could be a possible way to try and say that there's a connection between seemingly advanced technology and weather balloons, like the one that was discovered at Roswell, supposedly, rather than it being a UFO crash. People say, oh, it was a weather balloon, it was a Russian weather balloon, but it wasn't. It was obviously a UFO. Now, these weather balloons, right, then start to form a circle, and inside that circle is another inner circle of lights that are also spinning, and it resembles, right, what I would imagine the underside of a UFO would look like if it was directly above you. Now, with chocolate being primarily made from ingredients made in South Africa, grown in South America, and what we learn about how possible alien Quetzalcoatl and how it introduced farming and agriculture to the region hundreds of years ago, could this be to show us that the production of chocolate is somehow actually linked to aliens? It's because chocolate's a good way to control people, because a lot of parents use it as a reward for children, and it's also somewhat addictive and all. We then see this hand that's just on its own with no body attached to it, like kind of reminded me like the hand you fight at the end of Super Smash Brothers Melee, if you remember that on GameCube. Reminded me of that a little bit, and this hand it seems to be showing your children that there's a faceless force that can improve their lives, and that the only opportunities in the world are gifted to them rather than earned, which seems like a shit thing to teach kids. Next, we're shown a few place names: London, New York, Cairo, and Tokyo, which are all very prominent places in the world. Like London's supposed to be the financial capital of the world. New York's seen as a financial capital of the world as well, but it's also somewhat of a cultural capital of the world. Tokyo could be a possible technological capital of the world, whilst Cairo leaves me feeling a little bit stumped. But if you think about Egypt and that, Egypt's sort of the entrance to Africa from Europe, but also a place of great significance in the occult world because of the ancient Egyptians and their beliefs. And I would hazard a guess as well that all of these cities listed are home to at least one of those fucking massive stone obelisks as well, which seem to be important to all the elites from all around the world. Now, we then get a glimpse of the outside of this factory, right? And it's snowing, which could be to show us, or your children that were watching this film, that there's a technologically advanced something or other in a frozen place, a lot like Antarctica, maybe. Many people have theorized it in the past, though, haven't they? Like, and maybe that's why Richard E. Byrd went there to try and find this technologically advanced race. Now, this could be why so many people believe that there are aliens or maybe Nazis using alien technology in Antarctica because of the constant use of snow in films to show important places. Like how in the last Airbender film, the important area was to the north, and that was all icy as well. And in a film I've never covered on this, The Watchmen, the evil guys hide it out in the snow, in the ice, in like a massive igloo kind of building. Now, next we get a little introduction to the family, and I'm imagining at this point when I was watching it that these must be the main characters, because we're a couple of minutes in now and we've learned fuck all, like script-wise or story-wise. But in this house there's only one bed. So, if you were being cynical, you could argue that this is readying children for the idea of lying next to adults in beds, maybe. But that's more of an indictment against Hollywood itself rather than what the big they are trying to teach your kids. Now, we see that their house doesn't fit in either with the rest of the area, and that it's slanted and genuinely looks out of place. Maybe trying to turn your children against the idea of old-fashioned houses and preparing them for what's been almost 2 decades of hundreds of thousands of new build houses going up all over the place. What is actually interesting, though, is that the dad works at a toothpaste factory, and which is interesting because it ties into previous episodes where we looked at dentists and are they evil? Can you trust a dentist? And we also looked at Robert Padella, who was known as the dentist. Now, and then here in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the remake by Tim Burton, we've got this this dad who's the dad of the kid working at a toothpaste factory, and it seems like a mind-numbing job as well. He's just screwing the lids on the tubes, which is weird because the chocolate factory has robots to do all of these sorts of jobs. So I think there's a chance it's trying to show your children that toothpaste could be bad for you. And I've said it before, because I think brushing your teeth before bed limits your ability to dream, and it keeps you awake for longer because you're just rubbing chemicals onto your gums, which is something that you would want to. You do rub chemicals onto your gums, say when you're in the pub and that, if you want to, stay out for a bit longer and stay awake. And you're also, by rubbing it into your gums, you're rubbing these chemicals in the toothpaste into your bloodstream. It's just always seemed like a fucking mental thing to do to me. Now, he then gifts his child some malformed toothpaste lids, which he then uses to recreate what can only be described as a totem. It's a replica of the factory up the road, and he uses this piece that he's just been given by his dad, this weird bit of plastic, to finish off his actual Willy Wonka. So, could this be a way to show children that if they direct their intentions or direct their desires, then they'll be able to get whatever it is they want? Because I'm guessing this kid at this point, when I was watching it and making me notes, I was guessing that this kid is Charlie, because I don't think they've actually said his name yet. That this kid is Charlie from the title of the film. But at this point in my notes, we're 6 minutes into the film, and we're about 15 minutes into the show. Anyway, now we get an introduction to Willy Wonka as well at this point now, but it's hard to see him through this pane of sugar that he's standing behind, which could be an indication that influential people are hiding behind some form of barrier, or maybe through the glass, if you like. In the way that it's believed that interdimensional creatures can influence and observe our world, but aren't actually able to take part in it or touch it. Though I could be wrong, though, because he then places a sweet into Charlie's granddad's mouth, which is weird that, because the granddad's saying that they've run out of birds as well at this point, which is strange, and that they need to make some more, which adds to the idea that birds might not be real, birds could be drones, and instead of being created by the American government, they could have actually been created by some form of alien to observe the world. Now, one thing I do know is in Nordic folklore, I think it's Nordic folklore because it's to do with Odin, there was a belief at some point that the leader of the gods, Odin, was in charge of the ravens and that he could use them to observe the realms. Now, I'm not sure if that's where the birds are drones idea stems from, or if that was a little hint there in our history to teach us that this is where birds come from. Birds come from the gods, or what would be now seen as the gods is the government. But anyway, that's besides the point. That's a whole other topic for a whole other time. This sweet, what's more interesting, right, is this sweet, because the sweet that the Willy Wonka places in Charlie's granddad's mouth is a small blue sweet. And I'm wondering, is this a way to normalise seeing old people take medication for kids, and to show that medication comes from the same people that cause problems as the people that fix the problems? Because a lot of medications, right, they're coated in sugar of some sort, aren't they? Or sugar is, or at least sugar is thought to cause a lot of problems within people. And it's just a thought, I don't have too much to go on with that. I've not done any research into medication and things like that. I'm not overly sure. Now, it is worth noting too, though, that in this moment in the film where he eats the so-called sweet, the old man smiles, right? And he's looking at Wonka through a sort of 1960s style pane of sugar, which makes me think it is actually trying to normalise the idea of taking pharmaceutical drugs, or the idea that sugar itself alters your perception of reality and makes it so that you're able to interact with these alternate dimensional beings that seem to have some form of major control over our lives. And this is what they're trying to teach your kids, mate, in these films, man. It just seems wrong, man. Now, the granddad says that Wonka himself is a genius and that he invented a new way to make ice cream, claiming that he's able to do the impossible, which is exactly how a human, like me, like you, would be able to perceive alien technology. We would see it as someone doing the impossible. Then we see, right, that Willy Wonka, he built for an Indian prince. I think it was supposed to be the Taj Mahal. I don't think it actually said. I was too busy scribbling notes down, but anyway, the Taj Mahal's, I think it's a wonder of the world. And this is like a big fucking red flag, mate, waving around with the words constructed with alien technology written on the, on the little red flag. And there's a little fucking ETs there going, Elliot, look at this, look at this. Albeit that's a different film, but still. But then, I don't know if it was actually the Taj Mahal. But anyway, the sun then melts the chocolate. But this again ties Wonka in as being an extra dimensional entity, more specifically, what's believed of the Jinn. because the jinn are believed to be able to fulfill wishes, but there's always some weird form of drawback to the wish being fulfilled. In this case, the floor of the chocolate palace is quite obvious, you know, it melted. So I really do think that this film, most of this film and the messages within it are going to be all about how people can interact with we could call them the jinn or the fifth dimensional entities or the alternate dimensional creatures. Now, then the film carries on for a couple seconds there, and not much is there, but then you've got a little bit more where it talks about how spies were used to steal the recipes from Wonka. But the spies themselves seem to be like kind of regular people, but they go to this bloke down the road. And this bloke, right, he's dressed all in black. Now, who does that remind us of? Give you a moment. Just so you can put it in the Discord or whatever if you're listening to it live on Threshold FM. The Men in Black, mate, obviously. And that would make sense if the MIBs exist in order to police the border between dimensions. They would want to try to put an end to whatever hold this extra dimensional entity has over our plane of existence. The guy even grinned, the guy in black even grinned, mate, in a creepy, horrible way that didn't look real. A lot like how they explain MIB's mouths to look. And it shows how these recipes, or quote-unquote alien technology, we should read recipes as, was taken and adapted by these other parties to then create things that change the world. Just like how you could view the way that people believe that technology has been created by reverse engineering crashed spaceships, or maybe how it was gifted to us by tall whites in the past and we reverse engineered that. Anyway, let's have a song. This is Anybody Listening by Classified. So what are we thinking then, guys, so far? Have a little pause. A swig of coffee and that. No one's got anything to say. Speechless Patreon subscribers. They're speechless. They don't know what to say. Oh, see, Dan's saying he's not seen the film since the 80s. See, I've never seen it, so this is just... It's a boring fucking film. It's really fucking boring, which is why I think there's so much brainwashing in it, because it's just mind-numbing, so you just sort of zone off to it and stop paying attention. Them sort of films are the worst for it. Thank you, Fricknuts. If you're enjoying it, Fricknuts, consider joining the Patreon, mate. You can see all these other videos, and if you don't want to do that, which is fine, go to the link in my bio and try the other shows, mate. There's about 40 odd shows on Spotify at the minute from this series. I missed what you said there then, Don. One sec, mate. You remember the fat kid? Oh yeah, I think that's in my notes soon. Talking about that. There's fucking loads of stuff, mate, at that part there. Loads. Oh god, I've got like fucking a bit of a fucking phlegmy throat or something, guys. And it's hot in this cupboard. It's fucking roasting. I'm here in fucking pyjamas. I should have wore shorts, but I get nervous about wearing shorts because sometimes I do a live stream on TikTok as well, which is what I'm doing now. And the camera can fall, and I'm very, very conscious, Patreon subscribers, of flashing the people on TikTok by letting them see upside my shorts. So I'm wearing pyjamas, bottoms just in case, but they're quite woolen and they're quite fucking warm. So I am getting a bit of a sweat on, but you'll notice that kind of adds to the show. Because a little bit later on, I'll be a bit tired and I'll get a bit more frustrated and I'll get a bit fucking antsy, or I'll start trying to fight a headache. So we'll carry on, eh? Oh. We then see a somewhat biblical reference. Willy Wonka then casts out his employees, saying that he's closing for good, and then these gates close. And it seems purposely similar to God casting out his imperfect creations, the Adam and Eve, into the wilderness. Although, you know, if you believe in Adam and Eve, then realistically you should also believe in Lilith, who I can't remember if Lilith went on to what some people now call the devil. I'm not sure, but still, Adam and Eve got cast out. Well, we'll stick with that because that's what everyone's going to know. And Adam and Eve get cast out from the Garden of Eden into the wilderness to go and survive on their own and struggle, right? But the factory itself, the Garden of Eden, still continues to churn out smoke and continue existing, meaning that within the chocolate factory or the Garden of Eden, there's still something in there. Someone's there doing something. They're up to something. Something that the boss doesn't want the employees to know about. So could this be a subtle way to ready your children to the idea that a lot of big industries have one product openly, right, in the eye of the public? So, for example, you hear stuff and you read stuff online about how Boeing do more than just planes, and car manufacturers make more than just cars. Though, behind closed doors, though, they've got other bits going on. Though the old people, right, in the film say that the factory did stop and then start up again after a very long time. Now, this could be a nod to the idea of the great resets that seem to happen every 110 years, 120 years. They then say as well that the gates were always closed and that nobody ever enters or leaves the factory. But if the Garden of Eden was real, then the idea is that nothing ever enters or leaves the garden. That's what they're telling us there. They're just living there in perfection, in a timeless thing where people don't age because they're robots, And a side note, but so far, because this film is fucking really boring so far. Like I'm at this point in my notes for those listening, I'm 12 minutes into the film with this amount of notes, and it's just all this tripe about fucking invisible aliens, and it's got very little to do with actual chocolate. There's been very, very, very little mention of chocolate or anything. Now, they talk about how no one has ever seen Wonka as well. And just like how nobody says they've seen the Anunnaki for a very long time or ever seen God. But it's believed that they are there, they're just doing something else, staying hidden, by pulling the strings in the background. And the other granddad who's lying in the bed with direct sort of diagonal from that granddad is to not make it, as to not make it a bit weird, I guess. They're both granddads are in there with what I assume are both their wives, all sharing a bed together, playing footsies, rubbing each other's chests with their feet, I assume. Maybe suck on each other's toes while they're sleeping, as old people are prone to do. But this other granddad, the miserable granddad, says it's a mystery, and it'll always remain a mystery. You know what else is a mystery? The mystery surrounding Enki and Enlil, mate, and I'm betting that's what they're talking about there when you read between the lines. And then his wife, right, who's the mental grandma, she just keeps uttering nonsense just constantly. And then she tells Charlie that nothing is impossible. And it's actually Nana, for those wondering, it's Nana out of the royal family. But she says that nothing is impossible. Possibly, right, trying to show children that the people who seem insane are probably the closest ones to actual reality, rather than the people that just sort of conform to the perceived reality or go along with whatever it is that everyone else seems to believe. Then we get introduced to these tickets, and the tickets are said to be golden. And that ties in again with the Anunnaki, because they were obsessed with gold, mate, and it ties them in with the aliens and the chocolate and the gold, and was the whole idea of getting people to farm the land a way so that they could break up the ground so that they could reach the gold faster, and or was it a way to collect all these people in farms, not to eat, but so that they can harvest the farmers' shit and piss easier, because that's where the actual gold is that the alien wants, in the pee and the poo, that they then filter out in some way or other on the big spaceships or whatever. Because that could be what the gold is that the Anunnaki were after. Because otherwise, why the sewage systems exist? You know what I mean? It just seems like a waste of space to just, and then to do nothing with all that shit and piss when you could use it for so much stuff, so much things you could use it for. Anyway, you also then hear a poster being read aloud that says that some lucky children will get an unbelievable prize. Now, an unbelievable prize, right? I'm thinking that could be some form of genetic manipulation because of all the other stuff here to do with aliens. Like the ability to live forever, or to fly, or to swim underwater, for example, without needing to breathe air, which is kind of what I'm expecting to happen later on, but we'll see, because I don't know how they would get it in there, but it does seem to have these little nods in there to genetic manipulation, just from little throwaway lines and little words they say, which is odd because it's a fucking kids' film about chocolate. Now, we see the first kid that's found a golden ticket and won the experience, and it's some fat little German kid that's stuffing his face, and it could be showing here that the Germans have a link to aliens or to alien interference, or maybe just a nod to Germans accepting an allegiance with an alien race. Now, if Willy Wonka is actually a way to represent aliens, though, that's what you've got to bear in mind, then But the scene itself is a pretty fucking hanging thing to watch as well, because this fat kid eats with his mouth open, which personally, right, and a personal thing, I don't normally like to get personal, but I've always found that fucking repulsive watching someone eat with their mouth open. And it makes me think that this scene here, it could have been a way to try and discourage young people from eating meat. And maybe Willy Wonka and Tim Burton here could be a reason for why young people want to become vegans, which is fucking weird. Because in this scene, while you've got this fat kid stuffing his face and rubbing chocolate all over his teeth and opening and chewing like that, chewing with his fucking mouth open like a pig, there's a man in the background, which I presume is his dad, linking sausages in the background, just still kind of in focus. So by having an openly disgusting fat child at the front to make his stomach churn, and having the subtle imagery of meat in the background, I kind of believe that this scene could be at least partly responsible for how so many young people are now vegans and vegetarians. It's mostly going to be because of these sorts of manipulations of their soft, supple, simple child minds. Because there's no other reason realistically that I can think of that would make a child, that make a children. There's no reason why children or a child, to me, wouldn't want to eat a sausage. Because as a people, we've eaten sausages for a very fucking long time. And it's always struck me as odd that people seem to suddenly turn against meat. But I think it's because of these little subtle things in films like this. And we do see in the film how the toothpaste and the chocolate are connected. So the film industry and the food industry must be connected as well. The next child that we see is from a rich family, and they found a ticket as well. So this could be a way to turn children against the elites of the world, or at least the elites that are considered to be old money, because now as well in reality we can see 16 years after this film that old money seems to be frowned upon and new money is sort of is vindicated, the word, where you make them seem really good, where it seems like the fucking Elon Musks and that of the world and Jeffrey Bezos are great, whereas the people that used to build planes and jet engines and oil valves, they're evil. Whereas it's not realistic. It's not a realistic mindset to keep something like that in your head. Anyway, the little girl seems demented as well. She proper looks demented. She's got massive teeth and what looks like a fake painted on smile. Again, resembling depictions of MIBs, right? And she's called Veruca as well, which is, for those of you that don't know, is some form of like fungal growth you get on your feet after you go swimming. And swimming, right, is a very communal activity. Something you do with friends usually. You don't really do it on your own unless you're a weirdo or a pervert. And it's really good exercise as well. So this could be another way to turn your children against social activities and exercise. Something that a lot like the vegan propaganda associated with the fat lad with the fat lad a minute ago. And it's something that we're seeing the fallout from in society today. We then see how one big industry is literally just a way to cover up what another industry is doing. Because this rich man owns a nut business, like a business, he's in the business of nuts, like cashews and peanuts and that, you know. But instead of using his workforce to open nuts, which is fucking stupid, he uses his workforce to open these chocolate bars, which just shows how one industry just moves all of its money to another industry. And they're buying lots of produce from that other industry. You could view that as it's just money moving around in a small, tiny, confined little group almost. You could also see it as a rich man using his own private militia, if you liked, in order to improve the life of his daughter. A very modern business, though. Don't get me wrong, because he employs an awful lot of women. It's almost like he'll only employ women, which could be a little nod to what's going to happen in the future. But I'm not sure. Again, though, there's subtleties in this scene, with the family when you see back the family again, because in the background, right, while the family are there talking to the news cameras and stuff, there's another industry that vegans are fucking vehemently against, and that's taxidermy. Because, so is it possible that all of this film is just fucking 2 hours of vegan propaganda? In this rich man's house, one wall, right, is covered in these what are called head and shoulder trophy mounts. So you've got foxes, birds, bears, all this sort of stuff on the wall behind him. Again, just slightly out of focus so you don't pay attention to it, but you're seeing these really fucking irritating rich people that you're made to not like. It wants you to not like them. And while a kid is looking at this thing going, I don't like him, he's horrible, he's scary, he's annoying, it's also showing taxidermy. It's also been showing the meat industry. So it's turning young people against these things without them even knowing meat. It's fucked. You know, it's a beautiful art form, mate. I mean, I might be biased, you know, because worldaroundyou.com if you want any taxidermy. But I mean, I might be biased because I'm a taxidermist. and maybe that's why I noticed the taxidermy. I'm not sure. Other people might look at it and be like, they're turning people against fucking quality Persian rugs. You know, I'm not sure because I don't know if there was any Persian rugs in the scene. Anyway, now, as I was saying, these people that in these scenes here are purposely someone that you'll instinctively dislike, and then they're coupled with imagery that society seems to want to turn people against. And it's worth noting that Charlie and his family only eat cabbage, which is something that fucking vegans and young people seem to really fucking want. They want everyone to not have jobs, to be poor, and to only fucking eat plants. Just little subconscious little tidbits in this film for the unknowing children of the mid-noughties, mate. Right, then the little girl is also shown to be a horse rider. And again, on a personal note, I don't like horse riders, but that is another thing that animal rights activists are against because you're using an animal for sport. And I don't like it either, as I say, not from like a moralistic standpoint about, I couldn't really care because I think the horse probably enjoys it because it's been bred for it. I just think horse riders are fucking irritating people after going to a college where they did horse riding as a fucking qualification. And most of the people that did it, I would say at least 80% of the people that did that course were fucking knobheads, mate. But this isn't about me and my beliefs. This is about the hidden messages in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And there's even more then as well, like little messages. Because the girl says that she wants another pony, showing that nothing is ever enough for the child, a showing of greed. So far, both the winning kids have been greedy, trying to teach people, don't be greedy, don't fucking buy things, don't help society, don't help the economy, don't buy things. You don't want to buy things because then you'll be like this cunt here. Don't buy things, which is really fucking bad, it seems, for society as a whole, because we need to buy things for the world to carry on. Then another part that started to annoy me in the film is all the Americanisms, if that's a word. I'm going to use Americanisms probably a lot, I think, but they're irritating. And it seems to be set in England, this film. It really seems like it's set in England because they've all got English accents and it looks a lot like England. But they then use American words like candy. Something else that's really annoying, and earlier on, I noticed when they said the word colour, I could fucking swear they said the word colour without pronouncing the letter U as well, which I fucking can't stand. And then a little bit more brainwashing now in the film as they show the presumably likeable Charlie sharing his chocolate. And at the same time, they're showing a room full of shoddily made, hand-stitched wares, like quilts and that. So could this be a way to try and influence the children of the noughties to start making quilts and doing embroidery and things like that and sewing and stuff, And whilst also showing it all as quite dark and miserable with no electricity. And because I read a while back that there's supposed to be a blackout in America every 42 to 43 years or so, give or take a couple months. And it's been doing that for quite a while over there. So could this be to try and show that and try and spin it in a positive light to ready kids for it? Because the poor boy who has fuck all in his life is now happily sharing that little bit of something he has with everyone around him, showing children that if you have nothing, you're still expected to share what you have and give away everything you have, possibly readying your child to accept taxation. Maybe it's just weird to me that these directors feel the need to put these things in the films to try and like manipulate people. Like it's bizarre. We then see Charlie. He takes a thrown away newspaper out of the bin in the next scene. The guy chucks a bin, and the guy's well dressed, well to do in that. He chucks the news in the bin. Charlie goes and takes it out of the bin, maybe as a firelighter, I was thinking, or something, or maybe they got a leak at home and or to wipe his arse with when he goes to the toilet. But no, all this scene here is to show is that poor people don't get the correct news. They actually just get second-hand information, mate. Then we meet the third winner of the tickets, and it's some self-assured girl with fucking loads of trophies. And this could be made what, how like kids get given medals and trophies for anything now. That could be where this kind of stemmed from, introducing it little bits like this in the films. Although the girls seem to be really good at her martial arts, but it is very, very hard to believe that the three grown men in the scene couldn't fucking beat up a child. Because I don't want to brag, guys. I'm not trying to brag. This, as again, this show isn't about me. It's about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But not to brag, I think that if I did have a couple of friends, I think that between the three of us, we could probably beat the shit out of a little girl. I would think. I might struggle on my own. I might struggle with one friend. But with two friends and myself, I could probably hospitalise a little girl. I would have thought she looks about 8. I reckon you kick her a couple times in the chest, punch her a few times in the head, and then you can just start smashing the back of her head off a wall or something, you know, go to town on it, especially if you've got the other two to pin her arms down so she can't pinch it or scratch you with her nails or bite you out, you know what I mean? I think it'd be really easy. I would actually put money on 3 grown men being able to beat up a little girl, and I would be quite confident on my return from the bet. Now, I'm not a gambler, you know, I'm not a gambler, so I could be wrong. Anyway, she wins the trophies for nothing. That's the point I was trying to make. And one of the trophies that she wins is for her for chewing gum, which that's not worth a prize, is it? Like, you can go out most weekends or just hang around fucking Stockport Town Centre of a late evening and see fucking champion gum chewers. And most of them, you know for a fact they've not got a piece of extra out in their mouth. They've not bought chewing gum for the past 10 years, but the jaw just fucking remembers the motion. And they just practice the skill, mate. And could that be a way to try and ready children for the idea of fucking taking as much speed as possible, mate, for fucking popping a few E's and that, you know, it's probably weird terminology that, but could it not just be about that? Readying kids to see people fucking swinging the jaws off and fucking being told, yeah, that's great, do this, yeah, yeah. You know, just fucking, again, to do with the pharmaceutical industry before, a little tiny little nod to that. The next kid that won a ticket, he plays a lot of video games and he's called Mike TV. And he seems to be a very matter-of-fact kid, claiming that you just had to understand how the products are shipped and on what dates to be able to figure out where the chocolate bar was. And the kid just bought it to prove a point that he could do it and then said that they hate chocolate. Which again is another bit of brainwashing because there are loads of fucking flashing lights in this scene whilst the kid says, I hate chocolate. But earlier on, when the American term candy was being used, it had nice lighting, mood lighting, and seemed quite a nice scene and not like it was trying to force something into your kid's brain. Instead, it was just gently placing the seed of, you're going to say the word candy from now on. Don't say chocolate. Chocolate's what British people say. Chocolate is what English people say. Say the word candy, you know, rather than fucking flashing lights and fucking gun noises and stuff going, chocolate, chocolate, I hate chocolate. Right. We hear that all the industries are capitalising off of each other as well in the film due to all of the chocolate sales at the time. And then there's been a lot more cavities, which has led to more toothpaste sales. So the toothpaste company has bought some robots in order to replace the staff to save money and increase profits. Now, an idiot might argue that this is just progress, you know, or that this is trying to show that companies are only interested in making money and not actually the quality of the chocolate or the people's teeth. But me, right, I would say that this shows that there's a chance that robots could be behind all of this. They're slowly taking over all the poor people's jobs, replacing them and forcing them out of their jobs. And now as well, right, since this film, we've got sex robots now that can pleasure our women. We have delivery drones replacing our postmen. You know, they've come to Earth, possibly in the form of greys from the Zeta Reticula, like we learnt a few weeks ago. And then they take our women for breeding. They take our jobs. Soon, they'll be taking our houses and anything else we fucking let them touch. They give it another go at finding the ticket as well of the family. And they still don't win. Now, this could be to make it like the lottery in the real world, to ready you for the lottery in that mindset, maybe to turn you against the lottery possibly. Maybe that's why the lottery's become more expensive because less people are doing it. It shows the this time we'll win mentality. We then see a pair of, I would describe them as gimpy men. They're walking dogs and they're stood with their backs straight and they've got great posture and they're like, oh yes, ma, yeah, ma, yes, ma, dogs, yes, ma, move, boy, ma, like that kind of thing. And it's almost to further the plot because we hear them say that some kid found another ticket. And I just as a personal note, again from this film, I was really glad that there hadn't been any singing yet because there's been loads of opportunities where they could have just fucking thrown a song in. Like that point there to further the plot. In a musical, I would have thought that would be a fucking song. That point there to say a kid's found a ticket. So I'm really glad that that's not happening in the film. I was very grateful for that. I don't actually at this point I wasn't sure if there was going to be any songs in it at all because I think this is about 20 minutes into the film. Now the kid who we've been following, Charlie, not like following the kid in the film. You know, we won't talk about personal matters in such a show. Now Charlie then finds a tenner in the snow. Now, this seems almost as if it's to tell us that whatever it is that we need to succeed in the world and advance in society could be hidden underneath the snow, under the ice, or the powers that be that control us using money and built the economy around us as a prison could be hidden within the ice of the North or South Pole. We also then see that the Russian ticket was a forgery. This is all coupled with finding money on the floor, so it could be to try and say that Russians have been introducing fake money into countries, or it could be to subtly keep people against the continuous enemy of the West, the Russians. Just another bit of brainwashing for your children. But why not a Swedish person forged it, or a Chinese person, or a fucking Welshman? Sometimes the brainwashing is just fucking way too obvious in these films, isn't it? Charlie then finds the ticket in the shop, and there's more Americanisms. Charlie bought it using what he referred to as a quarter, and the man in the shop then offers the kid $50, even though they're in England. So he offers him fucking 20 quid? Is this trying to ready the young populace of the UK to the idea of the annexation of the UK by America? We may never know. Let's have a song. This is The Deer Hunt by Jedi Mind Tricks and Chief Kamachi. Have a bit of water, guys. What are we thinking then so far? Any thoughts? Thanks, Dan. Dan thinks it's mint. That'll do. It's enough positive reinforcement for me for the day. Right, then the film starts getting a bit far-fetched, isn't it? This is a bit unbelievable because fucking Charlie's running around on the ice now like it's nothing. And the old man that was ill has dived out of bed and he's dancing around as if there's fucking nothing wrong with him. So is it trying to teach kids that old people are feigning their illnesses in order to fucking either get sympathy or in order to fucking be on the dole or fucking DSA or whatever it's called? It's just weird that there's now wrong with him. And the kid's now going to get a tour as well of the alien factory. And they're allowed one member of the family with them. I would imagine for safeguarding reasons, I would have thought, which is very, very weird that the film would put this in, because I don't think in 2005 or 2006 safeguarding was at the top of people's minds. I don't think many people in the general public would have been thinking, probably don't let my kid go off with the mental rich man that owns the chocolate factory. Probably don't let him do that. It wasn't until about 2012, 2011, where all the fucking pedo scandals started coming out, and people were like, probably don't let the kid hang around with the rich guys. Probably not going to let that happen. So this is definitely a little bit of brainwashing, readying the population of the world for this. You shouldn't let your kid go off with this person by themselves, this weirdo in a weird hat. Don't let them do that. Don't go off with the man in the sunglasses, little boy. Take your granddad, take your dad, take your mum, take a sister. Well, maybe don't take a sister unless she's much older, or a stepsister, from another family who's much older. Probably don't, otherwise you're just taking them another victim. But still, weird that would be in the film, because that wasn't a problem back then. So it shows that there are little bits in the films to ready you for the future of what's coming. It could be, though, it could be from another point of view, using another conspiracy. It could be to try and replace the idea that an adult and a child would be better to replace together with alien hybrids or synthetic replacements, so that they can have a larger influence over the local area. Because there's also mention that the kids will also have a sort of wish fulfilled within the trip. Now, I don't know what the significance of the 1st of February is. I did have a Google, I had a little look around on the internet, but I know that it's pretty much the middle of winter. It's a couple of weeks away from when geese will start to lay the first eggs, which is probably not interesting to anybody. But it's a little something I know. It could be some form of, the 1st of February could be associated with some form of pagan ritual, perhaps. Maybe a Christian rite or Greek something, I don't know. There was some stuff on Google about Abraham Lincoln, and the Beatles released a song on that day called I Want to Hold Your Hand, which is very 60s, and there's been a lot of what seems like Beatles colouring and Beatles bits in there, especially with the little blue sweet, because didn't they used to make the blue out of crushed up beetles? So it could all be a little thing about the Beatles as well, like trying to bring back the Beatles. Maybe the whole film could be a really fucking, like a really subverted way of trying to teach you that Paul McCartney is actually Willie Campbell, and that Paul McCartney died in the late 60s and was replaced by Willie Campbell. But that is pure conjecture. you would have to read between the lines, zoom in a bit, then read between the pixels for that one. But it's a possibility, you know, because there isn't many things in a film where they are trying to tell you outright that Paul McCartney isn't real and Paul McCartney is actually Willie Campbell. I've never seen that in a film, but it's something to bear in mind that it could be trying to teach you that, because they do keep bringing up little tiny bits to do with the Beatles. Now, anyway, in the film, we're now seeing a lot of people holding hands outside the gates of the factory, and they're all kind of dressed weird. These 10 people. We got a posh family in looking like MIBs and a black-eyed child. The competitive family, which kind of look like tall whites with the silvery coats and space-age coats. They've also got blue eyes and shiny blonde hair. Then we get a little bit more of a nod to these families representing different races of sentient beings, because the posh girl instructs her father to make time go faster. And MIBs, Men in Black, are supposed to be able to time travel, as you'll all remember from the show. Now, Wonka speaks to all of these people in the same way that a god would, from above and proper fucking loud, like he's some form of godly presence. There's now some wooden puppets as well speaking about Wonka's generosity. So if Wonka does represent God, then surely these puppets are his humans that sing to him at churches about how great he is every Sunday morning. The Germans, who could be seen as just consumers, are just shimmering to the music, almost singing along to it already, whilst stuffing their faces with more chocolate like they're being hypnotised. He's described as a magician and a whiz, which is short for wizard. The wooden children as well, the puppets, are then set on fire, maybe to show Willy Wonka's hatred for humans if he's an alien, or the power he wields against his own creations, like how God floods the earth and burns everything, you know. Now, Lord and Saviour Willy Wonka appears, and he's got massive bug eyes like a mantid alien or a grey alien. Yet another nod to ready our children for the future intergalactic invader of our society. One of the first things he says is, "Welcome, Starshine, the Earth says hello," which seems like a fitting way to introduce yourself to an alien or as an alien. He then takes out some pre-written cards so that he can converse with the people, as if he's got no real understanding of how to talk to people at all. The posh girl says, "Shouldn't you be up there?" And he says, "Well, I couldn't watch the show if I was down here. If I was up there, could I, little girl?" Which seems like this guy really is an alien, or maybe like Jesus or God or something. And it's to show us how Jesus came to earth in order to experience the earth and his own creation from the eyes of a person. In the same way that, you know, when you play like Roller Coaster Tycoon or something, you build the roller coasters and that, and then it lets you watch as one of the people who come into the park so you can try the roller coaster. Just, I would say, without speeding up the loop so you kill everyone on it. But he did kill himself. You know, well, Jesus definitely killed himself, didn't he, really? Because there was he was crucified by God, who was also him. So God didn't kill his son, he just stopped him. Anyway, Willy Wonka seems to know all about the children, but he's repulsed by the very idea of parents and doesn't even know the word for it. Now, this could be because if he is an extra-dimensional being, he's only visible to children if he was one, and it might have a fear of adults because they can make him no longer exist. Or it could be because he's part of the paedophilic elite that run the world depicted in the film, and he sees the parents as nothing more than an obstacle between him, his otherworldly penis, and the children's orifices. I think Wonka might actually be Jesus, though, because he gets a bit weird when he's talking about his dad, and as you would, you know, because it'd be a difficult thing to bring up with new people, wouldn't it? I am my own father, you know, like fucking Futurama kind of thing. We then see a seemingly other world as well after going through this tiny door. After a minute or so, we go through this tiny door, and it could be seen as an unexpected entrance to another dimension. Like that, like the rocks that Linda Moulton Gold has lectured about in the past in some of her talks. This weird mystical world in there is almost entirely made of sweets, or at least food, you know. It's like a living factory, and which is how some people have prophesied alien technology would be perceived as, almost like it's alive. Now, if you remember, in the Pokemon episode, I did discuss this. Mewtwo then recreated the factory that he'd seen, and it was all living. It was like it was alive. It wasn't like machinery at all, which is this factory here in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's the same thing again. They've recreated it, made it better, but without humans, and instead all of the robots are alive now. They're like the machines that they did use are now living things, and the real world is bizarre. Now, Willie tells all of them that they can eat anything they want in the room, even Willie himself. Everyone else walks off, right, to look at what they can do. But the rich guy just stares at Wonka as if all he can think about is putting Willy in his mouth. It seems odd for a kid's film to have that in there. So maybe that could be a nod to the blood sacrifices and the adrenochrome feast undertaken by the world's elite. And realistically, is this what you want your children to be learning about when they're watching a film? I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. I don't think this film is suitable for children at all. We then see some gnome-like creature tending to the factory, and these are the Oompa Loompas, which I was expecting more from, to be honest. I thought they'd be more sort of colourful in that, but they're not really. And he says that they've been brought in from a place called Lumperland, which could easily be a way to show how a race of aliens could be imprisoned within our system and forced to work. It could be exactly what we are. We could be the Oompa Loompas, imprisoned in what we see as our entire world, worshipping a god, just like Willy Wonka. A guy who's provided animals that we can eat, water we can drink, plants we can harvest, work that needs completing. Wonka even said earlier that he keeps the factory at the optimum temperature for the Oompa Loompas to live and work at, because that's simply what they're used to. That's what they need. Could that be what the Earth has always been all along? A little prison, a regulated temperature, but now so-called quote-unquote man-made global warming is being conducted in order to make us realise that we're in fact trapped in a huge room that we can't escape, teaching our children, your children, that the environment is able to be affected or affected by people. Tricking children into believing climate change isn't a natural occurrence, or making them believe in fucking weather at all. Simply making kids believe in weather seems mental. Not telling them that it's something that's produced by Americans and China's weather weapons or by the chemtrails of the 90s, mate. Just ignoring all the facts and stuff that you can read about, you know. They then say that Lumperland is a place inhabited by these mental creatures, and it's full of jungles and this other race of people that seem to live like Ewoks, you know, in fucking tree houses with sky bridges in that. This could easily be a way to teach children about the possibility of Agartha or the Hollow Earth. And then there's now a scene showing how it's possible to eat insects as well, which is something that keeps getting peddled to the world on TV and stuff. I keep seeing this. They keep trying to make people believe you should start eating insects. Now, I've been to part of Asia. No one ate bugs. No one ate bugs, but they tried to tell us and tell you that they do. They didn't where I went. Now, Wonka at this point starts talking about how the Oompa Loompas want to find the cocoa bean. The cocoa bean is important to them. Find the cocoa bean. And how they could find a few of them here and there, but it wasn't really enough to sustain themselves, and they really craved it. This really fucking sounds now like some form of godly being, as Wonka is easily fucking 10 times the size of these tree-dwelling Oompa Loompas. It sounds like this godly being coerced the whole race, the humans, let's call them the humans, into working for him as farmers in exchange for the food that they wanted. All you have to do in this is replace cocoa bean with the word corn or maize, and you've got what kind of happened in America, if you believe some of the stuff you've read. Now, he claims that the Oompa Loompas are mischievous, though, which kind of changes it, which the extra-dimensional entities are said to be mischievous as well. And some people do believe that extra-dimensional entities are actually demons in it, and that these demons are also fallen angels who have this boss called the devil, who did have this other boss called God. So it kind of still all fits together in that way. Then we see the fat German lad get sucked up by a pipe. That seems a lot. It fucking looks identical to what you would imagine a spacecraft and a tractor being, mate. Like, it couldn't be anything else. There's no way that's anything else. To say that Germans were being abducted, or the people that consumers will be abducted by aliens. So people that believe this narrative, maybe the people that don't know the narrative, maybe, let's say, but people that just buy into everything in the world, and I'll buy the chocolate, or watch the telly, or sing the songs, I'll hum the tunes on the radio, I'll brainwash myself, you know, this soap tastes fucking lovely. Do you know what I mean? Like the brainwashing soap that you eat and then, or sniff it up, you know, and it comes and tickles your brain, fucking lavender scented, I don't know. But the people that buy into all that, mate, they're going to be abducted by aliens for some reason or other, because they're ready to ascend. And then music starts. A song which as we know, saying a song or music, that's just a mainstream people's way of saying the word vibrations and how vibrations can have an effect and change things. And these vibrations happen, which helps the fat kid who was stuck in the tube to finally ascend. But the characters can hear the song as well, so it is actually a part of the film and not just in the fat kid's imagination, the mum's imagination, or all like that. They're all sort of nodding along to the song, they can hear it. So as a is less of a plot furthering device and more to tell you that if you really want to be abducted by the aliens, you've got to be big into your vibrations and that as well with it, which is interesting, you know. Now the Oompa Loompas seem to be knowledgeable. Not there. Let's go again there. Oh, it's gonna have fucking dropouts in it. Crash the computer, guys. Fucking annoying. Right, let's. In Asia, I went to Japan. Someone's asking where I went in Asia. Now, where is? Is there a lot of dropouts? I hope there's not. Oh, mate, there's fucking bunches of them. Oh man, I've been fucking freeballing most of this. Is this what you want your children to be learning about when they're watching a film? I don't think it is. I really don't. We then see some gnome-like creature tending. Alright, so we'll just get rid of that. Yeah, finally, this is just some. I'm having to cut things out here. No, it's the computer, man. I use my phone for the stream. The computer, I use a program called Audacity and Audacity or something, and it's to record and edit, but it's dropped out a few times. So now there will actually bits in this video that won't be in the episode itself, which doesn't happen all that often. It is very fucking warm in this cupboard, guys. Holy shit, I'm roasting. In looking like MIBs and a black-eyed child, the competitive family, which kind of look like Tom. Then we get a little bit more of a. Oh, that was actually in my notes. Oh, buzzing. Just putting this in. Oh, fucking roasting me. It's so hot. I do quite like him. Yeah, you know, I'm not seeing his new stuff, but yeah. Family, which kind of look like tall whites with the silver coats, blue eyes, and shiny blonde hair. And then we get a little bit more of a nod to these families represent. Family, which kind of look like tall whites with this tall whites with the silver coats, blue eyes, and shiny blonde hair. And then there we go. Right. We can carry on. Let's see. I didn't see what you said. If you just flashed. Oh mate, fucking human. I'm in a cupboard. I'm sat in a cupboard ranting to myself and hopping for an hour, and I'm fucking 40 minutes into this show. So we got. This might be about an hour. This show. We might not need all the songs in. Oh fuck! It's warm though. It is warm. Right. And then we need to find where we was up to in the old notes. Where was we? Now the Oompa Loompas seem to be knowledgeable. Not there. Yeah, there we go. That's easy enough to find. These little people, right, the Oompa Loompas, they seem to be knowledgeable beyond the means as well, which seems like they're more likely to be extra-dimensional entities or aliens rather than a people, if you like. They also say, right, that the child will be altered beyond recognition, which ties in with my ideas at the start of this about genetic manipulation being carried out on the children of the world, and now this is to ready people for that and to make people more aware of it, like the X-Files, but instead of the X-Files only being aimed at like the fringe community to like get into it, this is another way to get it in there. So the fringe have already accepted it as that's probably happening, and now this is to get it into the mainstream, because this was probably quite a big film. Tim Burton films are normally pretty big. So this film is making children believe that if they don't behave, or if they go in the water, in this case, which the water is the chocolate, then this water here that is controlled by aliens, and we also learned in the last Airbender that the water was controlled by aliens, or if you like, the moon, if you listen to fucking so-called scientists, um, then there's a good chance that you now belong to the aliens if you've been in their water. The characters think it's strange that these creatures knew that this would happen as well, but it could be that they can see all of time all at once. So if that's the case, then they've got nothing but time to practice these songs. Symbology wise as well, we see a red dragon come through a natural gateway, and this could be a way to ready your children for an invasion from China, but could more so be a way to further indoctrinate your children into the belief of dinosaurs, as it could also be seen as a dinosaur, because it's a boat. But this boat, right, looks like a dinosaur, but it's got loads of these little Oompa Loompas making it move, moving it around, showing that dinosaurs are actually the making or some form of thing to do with these extra dimensional beings, and they made the dinosaurs, which ties in with how Christians believe the devil put dinosaurs there to test us. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the dinosaurs may have been made by, if you listen to the latest episode of Truth Seeking about dinosaurs, that dinosaurs were made by aliens as a possible way to try and terraform our planet early on, to try and change it and get rid of things that were here and to destroy it and add chemicals to the world without actually just dropping bombs on it. But then they got bored and just fucking fired the moon at us, which the moon is just the shell, if you like, of a massive fucking nuclear device. Anyway, Willie repeats himself about the waterfall again and its significance for the chocolate, but what if gold is just a sort of allegory for liquid gold? Not like poppers to make your bumhole bigger, but water itself. Maybe the aliens created waterfalls in order to mix our planet's water so that it can react and release chemicals into the atmosphere for them to suck up the weather in the water, if you like, in the weather balloons, what we see as weather balloons. That maybe instead of detailing the weather, weather balloons could actually just collect the weather. Maybe that's how they float as well, from all the water vapor collecting inside of them, and it pushes the weather balloons up towards, if you want to call it the dome, if you believe in flat Earth, it pushes the weather balloons up to the dome, and then maybe it pushes them out of the hole at the top, with the hole could be what we consider to be the moon, and they open up more of a hole at night time. That's why the moon looks so big, because it's harder to notice. And then the weather balloons come popping out of this hole here, and in the day it's the sun, it's the tiny little hole. Or that could just be like a magnifying glass to heat the water up, to collect more of the water from the earth in these weather balloons and suck them out of the hole at the top. It's just as a side thought there. And maybe it's some form of creature that's been imprisoned on the higher floor of this factory that we all live in, or that we all live inside of, that's collecting this water for whatever reason, maybe as means to try and escape, maybe to threaten us, and maybe that's how the great flood comes along every few thousand years, the cataclysm, the what's it called in the Epic of Gilgamesh? It was called the deluge, the deluge or something like that, the deluge. I can't remember the word, but basically a massive flood. And that would make sense if there is something above us collecting all the water vapor in buckets or these balloons, pouring it into buckets, and then when he's got enough, he's just like, right, fucking put the funnel in the sun hole. We'll pour it all down there now. Fuck the lot of them, mate. Fuck them. They've not even noticed I've been nicking this water. Need to do it again. Now I've got the chemicals out of this I need, but the chemicals are still down there in the rocks. In the same way that, like, you would fucking do so-called science experiments on a table, but this guy's doing it, this thing's doing it on a planet. Anyway, the children seem more focused and at the minute, like, and not so interested about the stuff that's being repeated at them. They're more focused on the fact that it's being repeated, not the actual content of the message from Willy Wonka. And if you think about it, that's all that school is as well. It's the same information over and over until you sort of finally bend over and just accept it, or go blank in the eye and just let it come in. School is teaching a child to accept repetition in its life, readying them for the working world imposed on them by the Wonkas of the world. It's weird how all my episodes tie together as well. Like, Willy Wonka's dad, right, was a dentist, which, as we learnt a few weeks ago, we can't trust him at all. He throws a load of chocolate onto a fire, right, and the flame changes colour, his dad does, and the flame changes colour, and then we see these skulls appearing in the fire, almost, right, almost as if to say that dentists are an active force in the underworld itself. I then get a bit of a personal message from the film. It shows a room with a cow being whipped, which is obviously the whipped cream room, and it's explained a little bit about etymology, where words come from, phrases and that, you know. So it's nice to know that whatever puts all these messages into our films and televisions knows that I'm onto something. It's also telling your children to think for themselves, because we can't see a sign on that door. It's actually the poor boy Charlie that works it out, and the rich girl says, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense." But she's rich, so she's already been brainwashed by society and accepted society, and that's why she's rich, and she plays that part. So she's already in there. She's been indoctrinated. Maybe it's a way of saying that there's a good chance that Charlie hasn't been indoctrinated yet, and maybe the poor people will be the last people to be indoctrinated into the new world, or they'll be left in this world to just have this world to themselves, in the sense of, you know, like the fucking, in the Bible it says the meek will inherit the earth. Everyone's scared, though, in reality, not in the film, but everyone's scared that the middle class is going to be destroyed, and it's going to make the gap between rich and poor as big as it was like during fucking Victorian times. But maybe they just want to keep all three socio-economic classes, but make more of a gap between each of them. Just as a little side note there, you know, just a little thought for the day. Next, we see some inventions and things that will be available in the future within the film. One of them being hair toffee. A thing that you can eat which will grow hair on your body. Something, right, that we could easily relate to how there seems to be a lot of people now actively putting things into their mouths and into their bodies in order to grow hair where they wouldn't normally grow hair before. Wonka kind of talks like he's from a different time as well, which does make sense if he's an alien or god that came to Earth and learnt how to speak to humans in the 60s or so. And because he's got no real understanding of human culture, he doesn't know that language and that changes over time. Maybe the ideas of him remembering his childhood is to normalize people remembering their childhood. But no one actually has any evidence that categorically proves, right, that their childhood ever happened. I mean, yeah, you can have photographs and videos and that, but if you've had your soul replaced by an external entity, or your brain replaced or programmed, then you will always believe that them images and videos that you see that your mum shows you or your granddad shows you or whatever are from your past. But realistically, they'd probably only need to make a few hundred children's worth of each colour of videos and pictures of childhoods in order to be able to manipulate the whole world into thinking that they had childhoods to begin with, when really they didn't, never. Because who's going to talk about the video of them as a kid to someone else? And even if you do, if there's at least a few hundred possibilities of other childhoods that could be picked from, what's the likelihood of meeting someone who's got exactly the same photos and videos assigned to them from their childhood, from this organisation? It just seems really unlikely of ever happening at all. Have a drink, guys, because I've got the here's how now. Here's how now. How now. Fucking hell, we're on an hour. Oh, fuck me. And it's time for this week's Here's How. And this week, here's how to make your postman like you. Be at the door before they knock, waiting for them. You could try answering the door in only a dressing gown, but accidentally, or maybe, playfully, forget to attach the cord that goes round the middle of it to tie it all together, so that you can possibly exchange one package for another. Have a bottle of water ready for them in the summer. Drink from it in front of them to show them that it's okay to drink. Nod and then hand it to them, saying nothing, It's the thought that counts, not what you say. Postal workers love a thoughtful person. A lot of postal workers are chronically underpaid by today's standards. So walk around and find them. Offer to take half the bag of mail from them to deliver it for them so that they can get finished sooner. This means that their pay will closer reflect to what should be fair for the working that they're doing, but they'll only have to work half the time for the same amount of money. If they refuse to hand over half of the envelopes and packages, simply start offering them money for them instead. They'll always accept the money eventually. If you have had the same postman in your area for a while and you plan on living in the area for the rest of your life, get that postman's face tattooed somewhere on your body or on your partner's body. That way, they know that they're more than just a delivery system. They're a valued and recognised member of your society. Offer them a foot massage every now and then. Doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman, there's nothing sexual in it. If they refuse, take the refusal graciously. Don't argue with them, don't try and force them. Then a week later, hire a professional to be at your house in time for them, to do it for both of you. Your hallway or your front garden, set it up with some seats, footrests, bottles of oil, candles, and if it's safe, it's not raining, some video cameras and that, some microphones, maybe an old-fashioned jukebox to help set the mood. Then have their name embroidered on a little Velcro patch that you can attach to the chair that you'd like to have them sit on, that the cameras are aiming at. And then you can film them whilst they're getting their feet massaged in your garden. They will have spent the past week thinking about your offer as well at this point, and they will most likely have thought you were joking, so you need to make it very clear that you were serious. Tell them outright that you know that they could batter both the lollipop lady and the milkman if they were to get into a fight. Big them up a bit. Teach your kids that Santa works as the postman for the rest of the year to make ends meet, and then have them start leaving glasses of whiskey in the garden and carrots for him. Have the children offer the postal worker the glass of whiskey in the garden, and while you're in the living room, wave the carrot at them from the window, raising your eyebrows, winking if need be to really, get it across. Test their local knowledge and remove all of the door numbers on your road to see if they know which house is which without seeing the numbers. Carry out a little bit of internet sleuthing and discover the wife or the husband's name. If they're not married, then learn about the parents, and then have some photos of them printed and framed up by a professional framer. And then after Christmas has passed, gift them the framed photographs, telling them that you're ever so grateful for all the work they do, and this is from you and all of your neighbours. It's important to give it to them after Christmas, a few weeks after Christmas has passed, because a proper frame could be quite heavy, and they've got enough to carry at Christmas time. And that's the end of this week's Here's How. Sorry guys, I've lost it now, because it's the carrot, it's the wiggling the carrot in the window at them going like that. The idea of doing that just fucking makes me laugh, because you're getting the kids to go and give them whiskey in the garden and you wave the carrot at them from the window. Oh fuck. Oh, I can't carry on if I'm laughing. What have I missed off of here? Nothing. No. Oh fuck me. I just think it's a good bit. I do enjoy the Here's Hows though. We then see that an Oompa Loompa has been turned into a long furred variety, like a long furred variety of a Sasquatch almost. And it could be trying to trick kids into believing that instead of Yetis, Menk and Sasquatch being a different species of creature altogether, that they're actually just a human that's been altered by another being. A possibly smarter being, which could also offer an explanation for why Bigfoot is often seen alongside a spaceship. Maybe Bigfoot goes to the spaceships in the hope of getting a cure or a remedy to their overactive hair follicles. I don't think anyone's ever considered that before. There's a possible bit of predictive programming as well in these scenes. They show some magic chewing gum that's apparently a 3-course meal in a stick of gum, and Wonka says it'll be the end of all kitchens and cooking, but we're yet to see this play out in the real world because it's only been 15 or so years. But the idea of dehydrated food is there for the army and for those people that pretended to go to the moon. So it can't be too far off for the rest of humanity if we're to believe what we can read. The chuddy girl, right? She starts turning blue, in it, the one that likes the chewing gum. And then there's a song, and honestly, I watched it twice. I've got no idea what the fuck they're saying. I couldn't work it out at all. Now I listen to rap. I listen to a lot of rap and a lot of hip hop, and I thought I can listen quickly. I don't have a fucking clue what they're saying in this song. No idea. So I'm thinking this could be some form of weird hypnotic thing to get your children used to silver-suited little people, possibly like, the Tuscumbian space penguins, and listening to their message and just listening and not taking it in. Maybe getting them used to the idea of listening to pop music where you can't actually understand what they're saying in a song, but you start humming it and sort of muttering along. There seems to be a thing as well where it's an underlying theme where it's showing kids that if they question an adult's logic, they'll be ignored and just accused of mumbling. Whereas if they ask a question about another person, they'll get an empty answer with no information in it. But if they ask a personal question, they'll be lied to. So it's teaching your children just to keep quiet and not question anything. Don't question reality, don't question this, don't question that, don't question the aliens, don't question the message. Just listen. You don't have to understand it, just listen. Which, if that mentality of don't understand it, just listen, how can that be anything other than brainwashing? Like, if that sort of brainwashing had worked on me, we'd never have this show. We'd definitely never have Truth Seeking with me and Jimmy Budd. And that definitely won't now be available on Spotify if that had happened. So maybe it's good that I've never watched this before. Maybe, because if I'd watched this film, I would never think like this because it would have fucking got to me. I'm not regretting not seeing this film, because so far it's been pretty fucking boring. It's one of the worst films I think I've watched in a long time. I've been watching it now at this point in my notes for about 4 hours, making notes and that, and I'm at the 1 hour 14 mark in my notes here. I've got a little mark here, so I've been making sure I don't miss anything for you. And we now have a moment where it's shown that Willy Wonka can kind of shapeshift. He's not able to change as a person and look like someone else, but he's able to perfectly mimic the posh father's voice, kind of like a minor bird, and possibly, this could be introducing your children to the idea of some people not being quite as they seem, or to sort of subtly tell us as adults that some of the important people, that's just a person doing a voice wearing a mask. Like, there's some people that believe that some of the leaders of the world aren't real people. It's more that they're just someone, the mask is what's important that they're wearing, or the CGI that's been laid over their face for the speech, and someone's doing that voice because the message is more important than the person giving the message, if you like. We then see a little girl in the next scene get carried away by a horde of squirrels, which reminds me a lot of the series by Steven Spielberg about aliens called Taken, which ends with a child being taken away by an alien disguised as a squirrel, which I think I've spoke about before. It's almost like the whole film is to show that, as I said earlier, that the meek will inherit the earth, or something along those lines, a sort of parable. But instead of it being easy to understand and condensed, they've prolonged it and made it as confusing as possible. And there's now a song about how this Veruca girl will now make friends with fucking dead shellfish, and that she's going to descend, which seems biblical again, because they say you shouldn't eat shellfish in the Bible, and she's making friends with shellfish and she's descended. So she's not ascending like the fat German kid did. She's now making friends with oysters and clams and things like that, and fucking prawns, and now she's falling towards hell. This could be a way to show, though, as well, the inversion in our reality that David Icke talks about. In our world, we're told that the rich are going to go in as high as they can, into space even. Like, that happened as I'm recording. I think yesterday, a rich guy went to space, or nearly to space. Although I do think as well that James Cameron, who's quite an influential person and film director, he also did try to descend to the deepest parts of the ocean. So it's hard to know. It's hard to know what's the truth. We then see how the rich can have access to these weird modes of transportation as well, like James Cameron's fucking submarine. In the sense, though, in this film, it's a lift that goes in any direction. It doesn't matter where it is, it can just move there. Just like the underground magnetic trains that are supposed to be all across the underside of America. We then see that there's already a Burns ward as well for the puppets that were outside at the start of the film, like half an hour ago, showing how Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompas can create reality all around them as and when it's needed. Showing, or at least trying to show, children watching the film at home that reality is made in every single moment and nothing is ever set in stone. There is no distinct reality, and the things that happen around the world have a direct consequence on the reality that they experience. We then see something that makes me accept a thought I had a little while ago as well. All around the world, right, we use fireworks. It's a ubiquitous thing all over the globe. Um, but we use them on different days at different times, which I've always thought is weird. In the UK, it's November the 5th. China, it's their New Year, whenever that is. Disney World, obviously every night, but disregard that because it's fucking Disney. America, 4th of July. And in the film, we're seeing them use this magical lift to travel between these different rooms, realms, whatever you want to call them. But they're disguised by fireworks. These big firework cannons exploding all around them so you can't see this fucking mode of transport moving around. So what if the firework displays in the real world are used to disguise some form of mass migration into or out of our sky? We'd never be able to see the people floating up or down as well because of all the bright flashing lights and the darkness of the sky behind it. We learn as well that Willie tried to escape to Bavaria in Europe and Switzerland. And with being what I think a German and Nordic place, I think Bavaria is Germany, and I think Switzerland classes as Nordic, then that ties him in with aliens again. Nazis and aliens, if you've ever watched the History Channel at any point, and Switzerland with the tall whites. What makes it more obvious that Willy Wonka and his dad are aliens, though, is that the entire terraced house has vanished on Willy's return home to his dad's, meaning that possibly the dentistry industry and confectionery trade are both controlled or created by aliens. Maybe the only reason we need dentists is because of the introduction of sugar to our diets. Because a lot of the sugar that we use, I think, comes from corn. I'm pretty sure we can use cornstarch and corn syrup for the sugars in our foods, and that was introduced supposedly by an alien Quetzalcoatl. With the addictive nature of chocolate described in the film as endorphin releasing, maybe the aliens were starting to try to gain power on Earth, on our planet, using our own game against us of the economy of society. We use money for power, so they made really addictive foods that damage our bodies, showing our children the true effects as well. This is what this is doing. This is showing our kids the true effects of the theory of problem, reaction, solution. How the same people responsible for starting a problem are then usually responsible for fixing that problem. Also that they can get more control or more money in the world. In this case, right, the aliens have introduced in the film have introduced confectionery, and in the real world, the aliens have introduced confectionery and sugar, and then said, well, we can have dentists fix these. These are called cavities. We can fix this with dentistry, which means you're going to rub this paste into your gums, which is going to make you stop seeing things in your dreams. And then we can interfere with the real world more because you'll be more sort of lucid and you're not using your brain chemicals as much as you should be to dream. Meaning as well that they can make money from the adults of the world, whilst also training kids to be scared of dentists, using film and television to brainwash them, so that the aliens can also, whilst they're at the dentist surgery, feast on the fear emitted by children that do visit those dentist surgeries. The film itself feels like it's supposed to be a look behind the scenes of what we consider reality, with all the white corridors that we keep seeing, that many people have escaped our reality and spoken about, like the people that have gone through the rocks that I spoke of before, that Linda Moulton Gold had spoke about. You go through them rocks and you just see big white open spaces with fucking boxes in. Almost like they're trying to convince children that all of this is just make-believe all around us and in no way could be the real world. Then the so-called smart kid, Mike TV, starts ranting about science and their understanding of science, which is the mainstream belief of science, so that kids can hear this and go, oh yeah, I know that. Oh, this isn't real then because I know the science that this kid's talking about. But it seems like it's trying to show us that science is just another prison that we put ourselves into. Willy Wonka acts as if science is nonsense and that it doesn't make any sense at all, which does make sense because if there was in fact any science that made sense and was factual, and it was actually truly how the world works, I really don't believe that they teach it en masse to the kids at school for free as well. All around the world, we get taught the same science. It's a prison. It's just a way to think like this, believe like this, think this way because of science, because of religion. It's all the same, mate. It's all the same. And it starts to show how something becomes reality as well in this scene, in the real world, because of television screens. I'd argue that a lot of people believe the things they see on the news and on magazine shows in the morning on telly. And even if that's not all entirely true what they see, it becomes a belief And that means that those people will act as if that thing they've seen on the telly is real, which will in fact then make it real in the world, because everyone's acting like it's real and responding as if it's real. And they don't actually need the problem in the first place to start with on telly. They can just pretend there is one, act something out or whatever, and then people are like, oh my God, that's awful, let's do this and change this. When really, they're just changing something for the sake of changing it rather than preventing something that happened. Again, the idea, loosely the idea of the problem, reaction, solution. The film gets very literal as well by showing this huge bar of chocolate become a smaller bar of chocolate, which they put a huge bar of chocolate through this fucking machine, and it becomes a small bar of chocolate on the telly, which kids are only ever going to interpret that as you see a massive problem on TV, and then it becomes a little problem away from the television in the real world. But before that, before the chocolate bar, before the problem, there was no problem at all. It's just been put on the telly to make you think there's a problem, to make it real, to make it exist. There's a weird moment as well where the granddad says, "Holy buckets," which is the name of the family that they belong to. And then he says it's a miracle. And that seems to make it seem like there could be some form of a nod to teaching children, or maybe the more astute parents, of the idea of a holy bloodline or something like that. And I'm starting to think that's what the whole point of this is. That's what Willy Wonka's searching for. Willy Wonka's searching for the holy bloodline, the people that he can use, the people that he left here, the God that left these people here, this bloodline here. The song then talks about, there's a song in it, it talks about something to do with television blocking out the fairyland. It's really difficult to understand what they're saying, though. I think it's on purpose. Something about television being bad for kids, and could this be what drove so many children, though I'm thinking towards the internet, because the internet's now a source of entertainment, and it started around 2000 and mid 2000, mid noughties or so. So big production films like this one, because it's so difficult to follow and just boring, could that be put on purpose to try and drive more children to the internet so that they can create a bigger divide between the old and the young? And the whole film seems to be coming full circle at this point in my notes. And now we're seeing that the pipe at the start that we saw, which was some form of vortex, and that Wonka is now using that in the lift, and he wants to break through that semi-permeable barrier of the grate. He wants to break through and come into the real world, meaning I could have been right about this whole thing being about allowing people to peep behind the curtain, and that curtain itself in this film is literally made out of the fabric of reality. And now we get to see the results of the weird experiments as well at this point with the kids. They've made Augustus, the fat kid, they've made the fat kid taste better. They've made a blue flexible girl, I'm not sure which one that was. And they've possibly humbled the rich family as well by sort of destroying their social standing. And they made the so-called smart kid into a more literal two-dimensional character. I was also right as well, I want to say, about how the film would be about magic. I was quite right about that. The kid made the factory for himself so that he owned the factory at home. And now he's being given the factory so that he owns it. I'm fucking sure that this film is just showing children that magic exists, but not in like the direct way shown in the film, and not like Hocus Pocus, Harry Potter kind of nonsense, but in a different sense of magic, in the sense that you can use your brain to make things happen. If children are magical, then maybe the kids have brought all the kiddie fiddling onto themselves. Not to victim blame, not in that sense, but if you give a kid a pen, right, or a steamed up bus window, chances are all that kid's doing is covering that desk or window with fucking pictures of dicks. And maybe that means the elite are kind of forced into it by these ethereal Willy Wonka characters. It's almost also showing how they'll grant your wish, but with drastic consequences. So now he can only have the factory as long as he leaves his family in the film, which shows the weird perverted humour of these extra-dimensional creatures. Then, just before the end, we get this weird scene about how the messianic Jesus figure, Willy Wonka, needs to take a human child in order to visit his father, who, as luck would have it, right, as I mentioned before with the snowy wastelands, the tundras, his dad lives in a frozen wasteland in a terraced house with no terrace either side of it. Again, it all links together in this way. At the end, in the sense that there's something important in the snow, there's a godly character, there's someone really important to somebody in our world stuck and hidden in the snow, and we need to get that thing out of the snow. That is all these films are fucking saying. It just repeats and repeats and repeats. Go to the snow, melt the ice, free the thing that's trapped in the snow. And at the end of the very film, right in the closing scenes, we see that the Bucket family are now imprisoned within the first room where Willy Wonka told the kids that everything's edible, meaning that this whole thing is showing us that Willy Wonka and his Oompa Loompas are most likely just some form of vampiric creature that plan to farm humanity. And they're starting off with the Buckets as breeding stock, and that's why they were looking for this special bloodline, the holy bloodline, the ones that can recognize a miracle. And this, I'm thinking, could be where we get the term bargain bucket from, and how that was coined in relation to fast food chicken. And that's all we've got time for, guys. I've already gone over my regular slot. Don't forget to listen to Truth Seeking with me and Jimmy Budd. And I'll see you in a bit. I'll see you next week. There we go, guys. That's it. That's the show. I'm going to put some songs in. It's going to be like an hour and 40 minutes, this show this week. It's going to be a long show when it gets to Spotify as well. Hopefully by that point there'll be more Patreon subscribers, and I can afford to keep putting a show on each week, because as the shows are getting more in depth and longer, they're becoming I can only put 1 up or 3 up a month sort of thing. But yeah, that's the end of the show. You can see by the colour of me, I am fucking sweating buckets, sweating Charlies. I'm sweating Charlies, guys. And on that, I'm going to go, because that's a pretty good bit to end on. Thank you for being a Patreon subscriber. I'll see you in a bit.